Hey, I'm Britt. Feel your feelings or die. Let's just get right to it. And why would I say something like that? Well, I've lived it. People with a lot more science at hand at the moment that can prove that if you don't feel your feelings, they work against you, your body, mind, and spirit. And it's a slow spiral to death. Be that some of your cells, some of your dreams, some of your finances, whatever it is. We're either becoming, we're either growing, or we're dying. And there's not an exact homeostasis in time where we can say no growth, no death, we stay exactly like we are. It doesn't work like that. For a lot of years, I thought it did. And in retrospect, I wasted a lot of years thinking, well, I wasn't harming anyone except myself. Well, when we harm ourselves, we do harm those around us, whether it's spoken or not. As we all understand, that's just the nature of physics. So whether we're in denial about a truth or not, it operates either way, right? Take gravity. Whether you believe in gravity or not, I don't believe in gravity, or I don't believe in God, or I don't believe in physics, or I don't believe in right or wrong, or what comes around goes around, or in the Bible we call that sowing and reaping. Well, you cannot believe in gravity, but it's still holding you on the earth, right? So feel your feelings or die. So for me, I was on a death spiral until I was able to face my feelings. It took a lot. And today I'm just coming to you after a long afternoon of 5 hours ago. I had the whole hair and makeup and everything perfectly arranged. And then life happened. And I had to drive for an hour in the rain, pick up some items for a trip to Texas that's upcoming for me. And then drove back, and my sweet, beautiful assistant texted that she's sick today. And, I don't have a big fancy crew, and the whole, what do they call it? The ensemble of camera equipment. I got an iPhone, and I'm here talking to you. And I felt it was important to do this before I hit the hay tonight. Before I go to bed, I wanted to make some content because I found myself walking around a tiny town in Oregon called Brookings. Some call it the banana belt of the coast. It's one of the only places that's not onslaught in that area of the Oregon coast with wind, 70, 80, 90 mile per hour winds, and it's often milder. Okay, I digress. Maybe I'm avoiding what I want to talk to you about. I found myself walking through a superstore looking for a cord to the phone that I'm recording on that broke, so I had to go get that handled. And I found myself getting teary. And I found myself walking by this beautiful spring flowers that I remember as a kid, we'd pop them. I'm trying to remember the name of them. I just bought one for $7.99. And I'm thinking the name of it. Anyway, they were in hanging plants and hanging pots where I grew up in beautiful Palo Alto, California. And as kids, Mom said, don't pop them because then they die, they can't open, right? It's like the butterfly in the cocoon. If it gets smished, no butterfly, right? But we'd pop them when no one was looking sometimes. Anyway, I found myself crying. And I'm walking around the superstore, got tears coming down my face, and I'm thinking, it's okay. It's okay, Britt. I've learned to talk to myself. I've learned to parent myself, and that was a hard road after some big decisions I made that I told myself weren't that big. They were just handling problems. And one of those was making the choice to have an abortion. So today, as I'm walking around this store, finding myself crying, I'm thinking of my childhood, and I'm thinking about the child that will never have a childhood due to my decision, and how I miss that child, and how I believe that child's in heaven. And I'm here to share my story with people, not to judge anyone, not to get into a religious or political debate. As I say often in my content, I'm not God. I have no right to judge anyone, and I'm not here to tell anyone how to live their life. I believe that my mission is to share what I've been through in hopes that that may help other women who've made that same choice and are living with similar consequences. And those consequences run from anything from self-sabotage to picking unsupportive or abusive relationships, all the way to suicidal thinking and attempting the act, and everything in between. I've pretty much lived through and experimented with. Why dabble in addiction? Why dabble in eating disorders? Why dabble in picking unhealthy people? Well, I realized all of it was to avoid feeling my feelings. And the awareness of that fact is one of the first steps to wholeness. So I didn't leave the store. I didn't frighteningly run to the bathroom and look for Kleenex. And I just kept going. And I said, okay, God, what is it that I'm feeling right now? And what came up is what I just shared with you. And it's been a bit of a teary day. And what I've learned is I'm not broken. I'm not too damaged to move forward. And neither are you. I want you to pause right here. Do you spend time occupying yourself, scrolling social media, shopping, whatever it is people do these days, to not be present, to not really feel? Because I'll tell you, your freedom is on the other side of being willing to do that. And why say feel your feelings or die? Well, I alluded to experts in the field at the beginning of this video that have all the science laid out, people I very much admire. I think of Dr. Caroline Leaf and all of her videos and science that she has published out of the goodness of her heart to help make other people's lives better as well. I think of Brene Brown for the emotional and psychological components of Feel Your Feelings or Die. I think of all sorts of influencers out there right now that we're so fortunate to have. The truth is, I have spent so many years, which finally led me to develop a path to thrive. And I'm inviting you on that path as well. I discussed that in many other videos. Perhaps I'll link one in the description below as we finish up here. But I also think of Louise L. Hay, who wrote a wonderful little book about Heal Your Body, and she discovers a component of every disease and the emotional component that goes with it. For example, I believe that unforgiveness is linked to cancer. Now, there's a whole nother video that we can discuss, MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, right? So we know that there are components of all that in our food supply, in our air supply, in our water supply, all those type of things. But today I'm just speaking about feeling your feelings as a path to freedom and a path to thrive. Because when we don't do that, and we shove down sadness or grief or shame or whatever it is, fear, our cells in our body have to deal with that. Did you know that every cell in your body has a cross on it? I find that amazing. I love Einstein's quote, I want to know God's thoughts. All the rest are details. And I feel that. Life is so nuts today sometimes if we get into the whole, what do they used to call it? Competing with the Joneses, and keeping up with the next nice car and the next handbag and all this sort of stuff. I never even went on social media. I never had a Facebook. Well, I had a placeholder or something like that. I just opted out decades ago when it's what everybody else was doing. Frankly, I was afraid I would get into the competitive side of myself. And if somebody had 5,000 followers, well, then I need 5 million followers. And I was afraid I'd get into all that. So what did I do? I avoided it altogether. And that's what I'm talking to you about today. What did I do with my feelings that I was afraid of? I was afraid that maybe if I uncovered something that I would hate myself even more for a decision I made in college to choose to end another life. Because I don't believe it's just a clump of cells as we were told, right? So I'm here speaking about this. It may not be the easiest conversation I've ever had. And I'm imagining that out of the 64 million abortions in the last 40 years in the United States alone, that hopefully a few million of you will see this and grab onto some of the truths that I share, and grab onto the dreams that you had as a child and the hopes that God gave you. If He gave you a dream, He gave you the equipment to manifest it. So I hope that something that I've shared today will give you the hope to know that you can move forward. You're not too damaged to move forward. And just like with social media, avoiding it altogether, that's what I did with my feelings. Avoided it altogether. You know, when I was babysitting as a kid, there was always one kid that if he couldn't win, he'd be like, forget it, I'm going home. You know, we called it the just take your toys and go home syndrome. And I lived life like that for many years because I was afraid to feel anything. I was afraid to process my decisions. So I just had a fake party for many years. And again, thinking that if I was only abusing myself, I wasn't hurting anyone else. If I was only abusing my own body to the point where I had a heart attack at 40, I wasn't hurting anybody else. Well, of course, we hurt those around us, whether we mean to or not, when we don't take care of our own selves. Hopefully now you know that you're not too damaged to move forward either. And those impossible dreams, they are not impossible. Because with God, all things are possible. You know, I have a friend who's reached almost 1/10 of the entire world's population with his dream. He says he stands at the gates of hell and redirects traffic. I think he's a very brave human being. And God gave him a dream, even though he didn't get arms and legs. And I'm speaking about the great motivational, inspirational speaker, Nick Vujicic. Now, at a point where I was at the other end of the spectrum from not wanting to feel feelings to feeling so many feelings, I wanted to get off the planet, as I used to call my code word for suicide. I met Nick. And I met some other people living their dreams. And you don't have to look perfect. You don't have to be perfect. There's only one perfect, and that's our Lord Jesus Christ. And He loves us just how we are. I believe you are His beloved. Whether you believe in Him or not, He loves you. I also want you to know you're not alone. And you're not broken. You're right where you need to be. You know, after all those years of feeling like I was in emotional quicksand, it wasn't until I stopped resisting and started surrendering and feeling those feelings that things actually began to shift. That's why walking around the superstore today, I didn't run from it or hide from it. And I just felt what I was feeling and let the Lord remind me of those childhood memories, all triggered by a plant. And I will name that plant in a future video. I'll go look at the tag. But I had one mentor who said, hey, Britt, you know the sound of crashing glass all around you as you start to shift your life? That's not your life turning upside down. That's your life turning right side up. And today I say the same thing to you. I don't believe in coincidence. I believe that's when God chooses to remain anonymous. A coincidence is what the world calls it. And sometimes He's not even that anonymous. I say that often because it's made such a profound difference in my life. And I believe you're here on purpose, not by some random coincidence. You know, breakthrough doesn't always look pretty. It doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like falling apart. But on the other side of that unraveling is something truly holy. Believe me, you're not failing. I believe you're transforming. And seeing this today by accident is a sign that you're on the right path. And I believe that it's a sign of a breakthrough coming into your life and your heart. And by listening, you're participating in this honest conversation. And you get to choose to be present right now and feel your feelings. I encourage you at the end of this video Don't just scroll to the next thing. Turn it all off and sit down. You know, science says that 1/3 of any audience anywhere has been somehow touched by abortion. So whether it's you, your sister, your mom, your grandma, best friend, we all know somebody who's had an abortion. The key is recognizing that breakdowns often come right before your breakthrough. So if it feels intense, don't run, don't shut down, feel it. You know, perhaps I'll put the grief model applied to the post-abortive woman in the description here. It's a beautiful framework that can show you where you are on that spectrum. Maybe you've never acknowledged your grief. Maybe you don't have grief. Maybe it's something you could share with someone else. I hope you'll comment below and share perhaps one sign that you've noticed that you're growing stronger. I do my best to answer every comment, and I'm so grateful you're here. And in case no one told you today, remember, you are beloved.